Hey, what's up? What's up? Hey, what's up, man? All right, just getting situated. Yo. All right. So what we're gonna be? I'm just gonna go over the market update real quick, but thought it would be good that we're gonna focus on the AUD CPI data that we're gonna have in about 30 minutes. Hopefully, we get an opportunity. But just starting off with the equity markets. So over New York session, equities ended up higher for the day. And this was because we had de-escalations when it came to wars. We was just talking about it pretty much. I don't know what your thoughts is about how this situation is coming to occur. It seems like this is just going to be like a nonstop battle that is going to continue, probably like over London session. We're most likely going to see Israel or Iran probably strike each other again. I think it's just a high probability that this is going to happen. So man, I understand that we need to get rest, but there's a possibility there's going to be some opportunities later on, especially knowing that tomorrow is not going to be very important with economic data. But at least did you guys understand? Yeah, I saw the shift in the markets, especially equities pushing higher throughout the day. When we saw that Trump came out with those comments that from his Truth Social, it was actually him saying that he spoke to both parties and they agreed to a truce. Rather is as true as not. Like, we understand that Trump always is very optimistic, so we just gotta have to play the game, right? Equities like to hear that. But also we're going to talk about Fed Powell's comments. But before, while we was trading live, consumer confidence actually took a very big dip, and this is why we saw that weakness in the dollar before Jerome Powell came out and spoke. I think this is a very good indicator, right? Seeing that the confidence level in the US is pushing lower, which is expected, because of tariffs, the wars that is going on. So none of this is new, but that did give us opportunities to take advantage of that weaker dollar earlier on the day. Now, I know, like, when we're paying attention to the press conference, right? It seems like it's just so much information, but these are like the headlines that came from the Fed speakers that was actually important. Okay. So Jerome Powell coming out saying that the US is not in a recession. That was another indicator of why we saw strength that came in from that. We saw strength in the U.S. equity markets. That I think that was extremely important for us to understand, right? Because you remember, like, 3 months ago, that the tariffs was a big fear that it was going to really impact the economy, and the news outlets does a very good job trying to exploit that fear into the markets. So the Federal Reserve is like the only ones that was saying that we do not see a recession. And also, we're trading economic data live, right? Every single day. And we are not seeing recessionary numbers. So this is also a reason that gives us an additional opportunity for more upside in equities. Then after that, we see that Powell said, it was pretty interesting. He did lean a little more dovish. He was not trying to, but he also indicated if we see inflation numbers actually lower, right, that he's not going to hesitate to cut rates. So we also had two Fed speakers that said that before, which was, pretty much the reason also for this week we've been seeing a weaker dollar, because that was a surprise to the markets. We've been dealing with the Federal Reserve, dealing with a hawkish pause this entire time, right? So having them switch up their stance, what is surprising to the markets is when there is a overly hawkish speaker and then he randomly comes out and says, you know what, I agree to having cuts if we see inflation decline, right? So that's a switch in policy stance. This is why the markets overly reacted to those comments, right? So that's stuff that we pay attention to. So now we understand that we have to look for continuous inflation data actually pushing lower. So that'd be good because Friday we got PCE, guys. So, it's hard. Like one of my struggles was how do I know which headlines was important, right? Because throughout the time, it's just like hundreds of headlines coming from these Fed speakers. And it seems like everything that they say is important. So the goal is trying to get good at pinpointing what does the markets care about. So when a Fed speaker speaks or any central bank member speaks, right, just try to remember that their comments is based off of monetary policy. So when you're reading their comments, does this comment consider him a hawkish speaker or this comment consider him a dovish speaker? That's how you get good at it, right? So every time you read a statement, right, is this hawkish or dovish? And that's when you start doing it more and more, then you see how the markets reacted bearish, bam. Okay, because the comments was actually more dovish. He's saying, if inflation actually shows more downside, then we'll be in a good place to cut, right? So that's how you get better by, keep paying attention to those things, so that you just don't get confused by reading a lot of noise. So just upcoming data for us, in about 20 minutes, we're going to have the AUD CPI data. I'm going to go over that. London session, no real important economic data, but especially for you gold traders, like if nine, like right now is 9, we see gold is pushing higher. If we get some headlines, right, we could see gold give some really good volatility around London session. But let's see if we get some headlines that can give us an actual bias, right? Because right now there's nothing really clear for gold to push higher other than having a weaker dollar, right? Because we understand weaker dollar, weaker yields also helps spike gold higher. But gold has been reacting to sentiment, right? War tensions. Right now, we haven't had any major headlines that is considering for gold to be pushing higher. I would like to see a headline come out that like Israel and Iran is bombing each other, and that would be obviously an end of the ceasefire talks, right? We know that that shit is just going to shit. This gives them a reason to buy gold as a safe haven. That would be a good indicator to continue to buy gold higher, right? But as of right now, if there's really no clear catalyst, just be cautious of the moves other than if you're just looking for some technical scalps, that is okay to take advantage of. All right. So New York session, we have day 2 of Powell's comments. So we're going to watch it live together, obviously, but I don't really expect much from that, because he already said everything he needed to today. He's not going to come in day 2 and just say something different. He's pretty much just going to repeat the same process again. Obviously, that's just what's going to happen. All right, guys. So if you guys have any questions so far when it comes to anything today or anything that y'all was struggling with, did you guys take any trades over New York? I took advantage of like those NASDAQ buys. I didn't hold it like a dummy, but that was an easy trade. Was calling it out the whole time. All right, so we could just look at the CPI data real quick. So the reason why these are the most recent comments from the RBA, they've been pretty quiet lately after their rate decision. They haven't been speaking at all after their rate decision. But, I highlighted the most important the most important comments that came from them, as we could just see that they're still uncertain when it comes to inflation. So when it comes to the best tradable opportunity for this event, it's going to be a miss, right? So I would like to see a miss across the board, lower inflation. If we could just get these numbers to come in below 2% would be highly good, right? Especially if we could see the headline and weighted if it could definitely give us close to that 2%. 2.1 is really good, but if we get 2%, that would definitely increase the odds for the next RBA meeting to be cutting rates, right? Because you could just see yet they haven't determined the timing on the next rate cut, right? Because the RBA was like they was actually the last central bank to actually start getting into their cutting cycle. They've been more restrictive than on any other central bank. So they're now heading towards their cutting cycle along with the Reserve Bank of New Zealand. So with this lower inflationary print, that should give us a really good opportunity to really focus on. Okay. So that's something that hopefully over Asian session, we could get some good opportunities. Even if we get a beat, like I personally don't want to chase a higher print, but again, it just depends on how y'all feel. Like you could chase a stronger AUD currency. I'll give you guys some options. I like probably an AUD JPY could be a good option if we get a higher print, but I think a miss would be better from a longer term perspective, really, to tell you the truth. Right. What's your thoughts is pound Swiss technical analysis, sell point, also tension support. Yeah. Like the tensions is definitely good for pound Swiss. I do like the weakness in the pound as well. Really good option. I'm looking at AUD Swiss right now. I'm pretty sure that probably pound Swiss already dropped a lot, if I'm not mistaken. So if you're trying to like enter at the bottom, that's probably going to be a bit of a problem. Let me see. Yeah, we got time. Yeah, because I like when the tensions are coming on, I definitely like the idea of trading Swiss. It's just as good as like trading the yen. Yeah, because if the tensions do continue, right, you could definitely start looking for that break of support. But it depends if we get a headline tonight, because we already had so much momentum to the downside. So if we get an additional reason today, like if we get any headlines coming in from Iran or Israel about whatever destroys that truce that they got going on right now, I think that would definitely signal more strength in the yen. But just pay attention to this range that we have forming here. And most likely, if you get a reason after that, that's where you're going to really get a good opportunity coming from the break of the structure, right? So a weaker Swiss obviously is, when we're going to see a risk on market, the Swiss will get weaker. The pound is very quiet this week when it comes to reasons, but you could definitely focus on a Swiss based off those tensions. But I think that's really good price action in the meantime. Swiss JPY, I don't really focus on that pair because of they're both safe havens. I don't like to trade two safe haven pairs. All right, guys. All right, so when it comes to this event, we're going to focus on AUD. Then I end it right after that. But if you guys are good with the updates, yes, sir. Yeah, just giving this one a shot. See how it goes. AUD USD. So if we get a beat, I love the idea. I'm not going to chase a higher print. But if we do get a beat, AUD JPY would definitely be a good option because of the Bank of Japan. They just had their meeting minutes. Definitely, it was just, I posted it in the currency chat. So it was just this right here that members suggested it was appropriate to maintain policy for the time being. So that's dovish. All right. So they're not hiking rates, right? So they're pausing rates. So this is what I mean about trying to identify the comments. So when they say we're trying to maintain policy, that means they're trying to keep rates where it is. So that's what we have to focus on. So that's why, throughout the Asian session, show you guys here, right? We just had such a weaker yen, but it recovered the move, obviously. But you could just see the downside that did happen for the yen when the person asked that comment. So that's why the only reason I think a beat would be good for AUD JPY, along if we get more optimism to come in place. But yeah, look, pound AUD also is a good option sometimes. Definitely when we trade AUD data, pound AUD has been the best movers for like the past 2 months. So I know if you guys are looking at that. Yeah, I'm just looking at the Natalie. I'm just looking at the AUD inflation data. I'm not trading gold yet because we don't have no headline really. So I know gold is spiking higher. I'm pretty sure. I know after 9:30, you guys are probably in buys already. But yeah, I'm just looking at. We don't have anything yet. You know, it's just nothing that's talking about the war. Like ever since NY session end, it's just really nothing. Asian session was just all the Bank of Japan summary. So nothing is really giving us a fundamental reason for gold pushing higher other than the dollar pushing lower for the session. So that also helps those gold buys. So if you guys are, you know, sometimes you could just tell like if people enter those gold buys. And it's most likely going to be a pullback. Is a really good pullback after all that downside that we have from the de-escalations, right? So we're just getting a pullback also. So just be cautious, guys. You know, just wait for those headlines. I would say just wait for a reason. It would make it just 10 times easier. Unless you took the buys, I know you're guaranteed to get between 30 to 50 pips out of this move. Yeah, Rob, you in buys? Yeah, figure. All right. Just go back to AUD. Yeah, I'm pretty sure most of you are in buys. All right, so we got 10 minutes. We just gonna focus on this data and that's it. So again, I don't want to chase a beat unless it's like something massive. We could chase this beat, but AUD JPY, I think that would be the best option. If we can start holding above 94.200, if we get a beat breaking above structure, that would be a good play. AUD USD, right? If it holds above 65,200, that's going to be a good play with the AUD strength. And GBP AUD pushing lower below 2.0940 is going to be a good play. Yeah, good job. Yeah, good shit, Rob. Now a miss, right? The reason why I like a miss is because if it's just that's just the direction they're going to go, you know, because if we get a miss, it's going to lead to rate cuts. If there's going to be a beat, it's not really going to force the RBA hands to hike rates. They're not going to hike rates, right? So that's why a beat is, if it's a big number that we just can't ignore, then that's different. But if it's just if it's mixed or if we see a minor beat, not something that I want to chase. Okay. So even though we could get a miss, it's still a possibility that we probably won't see a major reaction because of the time, right? It's 9:30. So AUD typically when the data comes out, we could get a actual spike in the direction of the data, right? And then we could actually see it just recover and then see the continuations during London session or heading towards pre-London, right? So sometimes Australia does that a lot. That's why most people just don't trade it. Okay, so what's good too is that we're going to focus. You don't have to trade the Australia stock market, but this is a good indicator, okay? Because just to give you guys an idea, it's going to do the opposite, right? So just to ask you guys, if we get a higher inflation print, what do you think the Australia stock market is going to do? You think it's going to buy or sell? Yeah, I probably wasn't ready for that. Minutes. We got 5 minutes. Yeah, exactly. So this is why, like, you could focus. You don't have to trade it, but it gives you an indicator of like how the markets is going to react to this print. Okay, so if we don't see that the Australia stock market reacts, right, then that kind of gives us the idea that there's probably not going to be a lot of volume. Okay, so if we don't see the actual volume, then most likely leave it alone. So what I want us to take advantage of, just give you guys an idea, right? So we're going to focus on that weighted CPI as well, and also the year to year. Like, it's all important. Don't get me wrong. Every print, everything has to show red or green. But if we could get weighted, because that's the only one where we actually have the high and the low. So I would like to see it go to 2% or below, which would be a really good option, right? That would be a no-brainer. We could take advantage of sales red across the board. Weighted CPI is below 2%. That would definitely increase the odds that the next meeting that the RBA is going to have is a cut. It probably could lead to an intraday trade, but the only problem with trading Australia is what's going on with risk flows, because AUD is a risk asset. So when there's optimism in the markets, right, the AUD currency could gain strength because of that, and it can mess up our opportunities, right? Ending the war, we see that tariffs is doing well. We see China is doing well with their economy. That also strengthens the AUD currency. So that could just mess up the sales in itself. But if we see market fear, we get lower CPI with market fear. Like, even if today is a miss, right, and we just don't see AUD weakness, just don't forget about this opportunity, because if we see that escalations happen, even if it's just next week, that would lead to better sell opportunities for the AUD currency leading into their next rate decision, okay? Because that weakness in AUD is going to contribute from a risk-off market and plus monetary policy. So that's how you could hold on to trades a lot longer. But if we're in sales, we just have to understand that, risk sentiment is also the main focus. It's quick moves and it's big, but that's stuff that we take advantage of. All right, guys. All right. So if you guys are good now, we're just gonna wait for the data, and then we just take advantage of this. But like, I would prefer to wait for a break of structure, but ideally, if we get a beat, I'm probably just gonna leave that alone. But if you have the balls to take advantage of it, it's totally fine. Because like, if we could break above this structure here, depending on whatever your terminals show, that's going to be that could be a really good scalp opportunity pushing higher if we do get a beat. But a miss, I want to definitely see a break of structure, and it may take time. So again, just be patient for the opportunities. Just don't rush it, guys. That's it. All right. So we just got about 3 minutes. So let's wait for the data. All right. Yeah, after that, yeah, that's it. And then tomorrow it's just Powell's testimony at 10. And I definitely don't think that is going to really matter. Yeah, I don't really see him saying much. All right, guys. So it's color coordinated. So green is going to support strength, right? It's going to support the green arrows. Red is going to follow the red arrows. All right. But let's get a surprise, a miss. Like, I'm telling you, to me personally, the best opportunity that gives us the best edge, the best opportunity is going to be if we get a miss across the board and then looking for AUD weakness. To me, that would be the best option, right? Because that's going to be that stepping stone for the RBA to be looking towards those rate cuts. If we get a beat again, it's a possibility we could see strength. If you want to take it, that's fine. But I personally don't think that would be the best option. But the markets is going to react. If everything is green across the board, I'm not going to say don't take it, right? But at least you could understand the difference, because with this type of print, it could be a miss too, and we still probably won't see volume, which sucks, just because of the timing. All right, guys, we got 30 seconds. All right, 5 seconds, guys. Four, three, two, one. Let's see what we get. All right, so I wish it was a 2%, but this does support AUD weakness. Okay, like again, I wish it was a 2%, but it does support AUD weakness. But let's wait for those breaks of structure, like right across the board, right? And then we could just see that the Australia stock market did spike higher, right? Which is a good sign, but we just didn't have no surprise, right? But it is red across the board. So what we're going to do is wait for a break of structure, okay? And once we start breaking support, that's going to give us the confirms that the weakness is going to be there, all right? Because remember what I said about the timing, because now it's only 9:30. It's not a lot of volume at this time for currencies. It's usually good at this time for trading gold, but not for currencies. So once we start breaking support of, I like AUD USD could be a good one once we start. I'm going to look at AUD USD once we start breaking below 64.8. Yeah, like 64,860. Once we break below that support, that's when I'll be looking for the sell opportunities. AUD JPY, not a real fan of it because we have such a weaker yen. But if we do get market fear, then AUD JPY could be a good option if we break below that support. But as we can see right now, like the Australia stock market, it did spike higher in the direction we wanted, but it started pulling back. But I would still like to see the Australia 200 start showing some green candles. It's not to trade the Australia stock market, but use that as an indicator that is telling you that, okay, we have a dovish reaction. So when we get a stronger currency and a weaker, if we get a stronger currency, stronger equity markets, but a weaker currency, that's giving us a dovish reaction. That's how we know that the markets is going to react to the data. All right. So that's what I would focus on. Let me just fix this. Yeah, 6A. Yeah, so I'm going to look at AUD USD. If we break that support, just set those alerts, guys. That's all. And whenever the time comes, again, it could happen in the next 10 minutes from now, or it could even happen in the next 2-3 hours. But I don't want us to forget about the weakness in AUD that could come in from rate cuts actually coming in place. It would be best too for you guys to focus on this. It's all, if we get the market expectations pricing in more of a rate cut for the next meeting, that would be a good catalyst too, because that headline coming out, hopefully that comes out soon as well. That would most likely start triggering some more weakness in AUD. So that's something I would focus on as well. But all right, guys, the currency chart, we could just see we got the AUD weakness, right? So we just need to start seeing some more volume coming in place, and that's going to be a good option. No, just I'm just trying it out. I'll probably do the market updates for this, most likely. I'll probably just do the market updates, and I'll do it on YouTube. And yeah, like the live calls, it's just for the group, but I'll do the market updates. I'll just do that. But all right, guys, just save those alerts. Just try to screenshot it for the areas of interest. Once we start breaking support, that's what we take advantage. But still, pay attention to news headlines, because once any headline comes between Israel and Iran, that's like all of this shit is not going to matter. It's just going to focus on those headlines. But for now, we have a reason for the AUD weakness. We just need the markets to give us those confirms. So don't rush into a sell. Wait until we start breaking structure. Once we break support, that would give us the catalyst that we need to look for, okay? So, but if a headline comes out and it's also a risk off, right? If we see more escalations, that would definitely help. I would like the idea of AUD USD sells or AUD JPY sells if we get a risk off market. All right, so just pay attention to headlines, because even if a headline comes out and is optimistic, then that's going to strengthen the AUD currency. Then most likely just cut that out and wait for opportunities probably down the line. All right, guys. So just how I'm going to end it here. So if you guys have any questions, just hit me up. All right.